Brahmanda Purana, Part 5, Lalita Mahatmya, Chapter 40. Greatness of Kamaksi. The footnote says this chapter gives the following stories about the greatness of Kamaksi. Parvati sportingly closes the eyes of Shiva and commits the sin of dislocating the religious life of the world. She is made to atone for it by penance on the Kampa. Shiva, in his loneliness under a Kamra tree, performs penance at Kanchi. Due to Kamakshi's blessings to both, they are united forever. Verse number 19 to 45. Quarrel between Brahma and Vishnu about personal superiority, Shiva's appearance as a column of fire, Brahmadeva's arrogance to Shiva, for which Bhairava plucks Brahma's head. Bhairava, relieved of his sin of Brahmahatya through Kamakshi's grace. Verse number 46 to 86. Birth of sons of Dasharatha, king of Ayodhya. Verse number 87 to 137. The story has no basis in Valmiki Ramayana. The first two stories have some basis in other Puranas, but here, as expected, our author changed them to glorify Kamakshi. Agastya said, "What are the different sportive and gracious activities of Mahatripura Sundari, who is installed on the pedestal of Kamakoshtha and who is well renowned as Kamakshi? That goddess Mahatripura Sundari, who is Maheshwari herself, is well known as Sri Kamakshi. She is stationed in the terrestrial sphere. What are the activities of this goddess? O most eloquent one, recount to me divine her divine life." Hayagriva said, "Although she is stationed here on the earth, O pod-born sage, she abides in the heart of everyone. She bestows the fruit of acts on all embodied beings in accordance with their different activities. Whatever happens in the world is the result of her activities. One may think something, but she disposes of it freely in accordance with her will. The Shaktis, beginning with Tripura, are her own incarnations. She herself was Mahalakshmi. She created 3 eggs formerly. Those eggs were the abode of the 3 great Devas, as well as the 3 Shaktis. From one egg were born Ambika and Purushottama. From another egg were born Shri, goddess of wealth, and Virincha, Brahma. And from the third were born the goddess of speech and Shiva. Maheshwari united in marriage Indira, the goddess of wealth, with Mukunda or Purushottama. She joined Parameshana with Parvati and Pitamaha with Saraswati. She employed Brahma in the task of creating the worlds, Vasudeva in the task of sustaining, and the 3-eyed Lord Shiva in the task of annihilation. All these stay in Brahmaloka, Vaikuntha, and Kailasha respectively, always meditating on Mahalakshmi, the bestower of welfare. Once Goddess Parvati was sporting about on the splendid peak of the Kailasa. She then closed the 2 eyes of Mahesha. Since the sun and the moon were his 2 eyes, the whole of the 3 worlds became enveloped in darkness. It was devoid of light all round. Then the people in all the worlds abandoned the rites pertaining to the Devas and the Mens. They were confused as to what they should do. They could not comprehend anything. On seeing it, Lord Rudra spoke to Parvati thus: Sin has been committed by you, O gentle lady, by closing my eyes. The sages have abandoned their penances. The followers of the Vedic injunctions have dropped their Sandhya rites, Vedic prayers, and rituals. O Ambika, all the Vedic rites have been ruined by you. Hence, for the expiation of the sin, perform the difficult task of penance. Go to Kashi and perform holy rites and observances there for some time. Go to Kanchipura afterwards. There you will see Kamaksi. Propitiate this eternal deity Shiva who destroys all sins. Keep the holy basil Tulasi plant in front of you. Perform penance on the banks of Kampa. After having directed her thus, Mahadeva vanished there itself. Ishani, who wished to follow the instructions of her lord, acted accordingly. By the penance of long duration, she became afflicted, but her heart did not turn towards anything else. Kamakshi manifested herself in front of Shiva and spoke these words: Dear child, O Lady of good holy rites, I have become sufficiently pleased with your severe austerities. Afterwards, Parvati opened her eyes and saw the goddess Ambika stationed in front of herself. She had the refulgence to 10,000 rising suns. She was bedecked in all types of ornaments such as crown, necklace, armlets, bangles, and other types of jewelry. Her hand shone with nose, god, sugarcane, bow, and the 5 arrows. The crescent moon shining on the top of her crown served as the ornament. It was she who engaged Brahma, Hara, Rudra, Isha, and Sadashiva in their positions. They call her Saguna Brahman. She is designated as the highest goal. She was the creator of 2 universes. On seeing the great imperial divinity, she became highly delighted. Hair stood on their ends all over her body. On account of pleasure, her eyes beamed. Along with her friends such as Chandika, Mangala, and others, she suddenly circumambulated her and fell at her feet with 8 limbs touching the ground, with the palms joined in reverence. She bowed down once again to the goddess who was identical with herself. Mahatripura Sundari looked at her kindly and lovingly, and after embracing her with both of her arms, said to her thus: Dear one, obtain Rudra as your husband, as desired by you mentally. For the sake of defending everything in the world, following my instructions, here is the difference between you and me. Undoubtedly, you are I myself. What sin can there be in your case, O lady of great felicity? Indeed, you are destroyer of sins. Leading yogins consider you alone as the deity in the form of Brahman, O dear one. This is but a sport, a great fascination unto the entire world. As the great empress said thus, Sarva Mangala bowed down to her. By looking at her, she attained great pleasure. Even as Parvati was eulogizing her, the other deity entered the heart of the delighted deity Parvati. O great sage! She was struck with wonder and pondered over the incident again and again. Is this a dream that has been seen by me, or is it a misconception and illusion? After pondering thus, she glanced all round. Thereupon she saw her smiling friends Jaya and Vijaya. As they bowed down to her, she became delighted and said to them, O dear ones, where had you been so long? Did you see Kamakshi seen by me? On hearing her words, their eyes beamed with ecstatic delight. After placing the flowers intended for worship in front of her, they said, "It is true that the great goddess has been seen now by both of us. It is neither a dream nor an illusion. She directly went into your heart." After saying this, both of them bowed down humbly and sat beside her. At the root of the sole mango tree, the Lord Shiva, who was in agony due to separation from Bhavani, controlled his sense organs and meditated on Kamaksi for the sake of acquiring Gauri. The great presiding deity Sri Vidya was present there also. Delighted very much, she kindly spoke to Shiva, who was steadily meditating on her. "Stop your meditation, O destroyer of arrogance of the god of love. At my behest, accept once again the god of love, who too abides by my directions. Stay here perpetually on my Pita named Ekamra. O deity of holy rites, by coming to my vicinity voluntarily for pleasing me, do bless Gauri, who resides on the banks of the river Kampa. Eschew twofold distress, that arising from your yogic activities, that is penance, etc., as well as that arising from her viyoga, separation." After saying this, the great goddess Rama vanished there in his heart. Shiva, the intelligent one, immediately got up after getting her blessing. Shiva, who was attended upon by all devas, became delighted in his mind. He boldly got up suddenly. He meditated upon Mahatripura Sundari, from whom the twofold world consisting of the mobile and immobile beings rises up, and in whom it merges. He accepted Shiva, who was adorning the river Kampa, and whose mind is filled with sympathy. He accepted Shiva in accordance with the religious injunctions regarding marriage alliance. He took her with him, rode on his bull, and went to the peak of Kailasha. Listen to another thing, O pot-born sage of great intellect, O sinless one. I shall tell you the power of the primordial Lakshmi. The three deities went to the assembly of Brahma and sat there, the guardians of the quarters, all suras, yogins beginning with Sanaka, the celestial sages beginning with Narada, Vasishtha, and other ascetics. All these gathered together there. Both Brahma and Shiva had five faces, hence they could not differentiate them. They asked one another, they asked one another, "Who is Brahma? Who is Shankara?" Even as they were discussing among themselves, Shiva vanished immediately. Then an argument rose between the five-faced Brahma and dark-colored Vishnu. "O ignorant one, you are born from the lotus that came out of my navel, hence you are my son. I am Brahma and the maker of creation," said Brahma. "There is similarity in name. You too, you and Rudra are my sons, since I am the creator." Thus both of them were deluded by Maya. Between them appeared Maheshwara in the form of a great column of fire, as though to demonstrate his greatness to them as Brahma. After realizing that it was Maheshana, Vishnu remained silent. But the five-faced Brahma stood there, showing disregard to him. Over Brahma's heads there was a wheel of brilliant splendor. In the middle of that circle, the Lord Shiva manifested himself along with Uma. Brahma looked up once again and spoke these words disparagingly. On hearing those words, the destroyer of the Tripuras became enraged. He glanced at Vishnu too, like this angrily and emotionally. From them both was born Bhairava, endued with anger. With his nail he picked off one of the heads of Brahma. All the persons there shouted and shrieked, alas, and ran away. The skull of Brahma stuck to the nail of Bhairava, who tried to shake it off again and again, but it did not fall off. In order to get rid of that sin of Brahmin slaughter, he wandered over the whole of the earth, visiting all holy spots and the great rivers like Ganga, etc. Kapali, one holding the skull, that is Bhairava, was not released from that sin of Brahmin slaughter. His very face indicated his despondent state. He appeared dejected and devoid of splendor. After a long time he reached Kanchi, where Brahma had stayed before. There he begged for alms every day and served the great goddess Shri. He took bath every day in the Panchatirtha, holy waters of that name that had all the characteristics of a sacred place. Bilwala Bhairava stayed there for some time, as though utterly confused. On account of his stay in the holy place with Kanchi, he gradually became pure in heart and got rid of all agony. He mentally meditated on Sri Devi, who was served by Lakshmi on the north and Vasudeva on the south. He came to the Sri Kamakoshtha and stood in front of it. Practicing self control, he meditated upon the feet of Adi Lakshmi, checking the movement of vital airs within. Achaleshwara, that is Lord Bhairava, who did not move, remained motionless like a lamp in a place where no wind blows and like a sea with no ripples on it. Bhairava, who was unrestricted in his activities, performed an unbroken series of meditations, unbroken as like the continuous flow of oil, on the Lord of the daughter of the mountain and Shri, the greatest goddess. Neither Brahma, nor Vishnu, nor Kapila, the great Siddha, nor Sanaka and others, nor the sages like Shuka and others were competent to perform such a deep, concentrated meditation. On account of the sacred feelings regarding Shri and yogic practice, Shiva attained identity with Shri. Thereupon, goddess Shri Devi was delighted. In the middle of the night, she stood before him, surrounded by a halo of brilliant refulgence. She, who was identical with speech, that is, goddess of speech, spoke these words: O Sri Kantha, the destroyer of all sins, what is the sin unto you? You are identical with my form. What about difference in body? This is the delusion of the whole world. By tomorrow you will be instantaneously liberated from the scene of Brahmana slaughter. After saying this, Mahasimhasaneshwari, goddess of the great throne, vanished there. Bhairava became delighted in his mind. He considered himself blessed due to the vision of Shri. He spent the remaining part of the night by engaging himself solely on meditation on Shri. Early in the morning, he took his bath in the Pancha Mahatirtha and performed Sandhya rites. Thereafter, he repeatedly shook hand in order to remove the skull sticking to it. Even then, it did not drop down, hence, he became very much despaired. Was that a dream, or the deceptive Maya, or was it a hallucination? Thinking thus repeatedly, Isha became utterly perplexed in his mind due to grief. Thereafter, he controlled his grief. Shiva, the leader of courageous persons, bowed down to the dais of the holy basil plant and worshipped it. He stood before it with all the sense organs perfectly under control. Then once again he entered the state of ecstatic trance. When a yama, 3 hours, passed by, the goddess again appeared before him. O Shambhu, stop your meditation. Dip yourself here in this excellent lake. After commanding thus, she vanished. He became worried. Is this too a Maya delusion, or is this a dream? What should be done by me? Previously, this had been mentioned by the supreme goddess Sri Devi. By tomorrow, you will be instantaneously liberated from the sin of Brahmahत्या. A period of 3 hours has elapsed in the course of this day. Such being the case, everything is false. Thus the Lord became agitated with more worries. At that time, a roaring sound was produced by the ethereal voice. Dip yourself in the water. On hearing this, Shankara got rid of his suspicions and came to a decisive conclusion. He dipped himself in the lake but got up in Ganga. On seeing Kashi there, he began to think, what is this? He stood thus silently for a muhurta, short period, with the skull still sticking to his fingernail. On seeing that the sun had sufficiently risen up to scorch everyone's forehead, Shiva, of great self control and having the crescent moon over his forehead, entered the city for the sake of alms. Wandering along the main street, he went to a few houses. Then he saw in front of him a certain woman having the same form and features as those of Sri Devata of Kanchi. She gave him alms in the form of a refulgent mass of splendor and immediately vanished. Instantaneously, that Kapala skull of Brahma dropped down from the tip of his nail. On seeing that wonderfully excellent act of Kamaksi, the lotus like face of Shiva became delighted. He honored it very much. He thought that the city in front of him was the city of Kanchi, that the holy river in front of him was the great river Kampa, and the deity was Kamakshi herself. Thus, due to the power of the goddess, Hara was liberated from his difficulty. Regaining normalcy, he went to his own abode, praising the greatest Sri. I shall recount another gracious activity of great potentiality of Sri Mahadevi. Listen, O pot-born sage. To those who listen to it, it always yields whatever is desired. There was a glorious king named Dasaratha ruling over Ayodhya. For a long time he had no issue and he was grief stricken. The intelligent king, very pure in conduct, secretly called his priest Vasishtha, who was conversant with the subject matter of all Shastras, scriptures, and said, O glorious one, I have spent a long time, but I have not obtained a single son. My agony due to yearning for a son increases continuously. What shall I do whereby I will get a child? Please tell it to me. Vasishtha said, O great king of Manu's race, I shall tell you a secret. Ayodhya, Mathura, Maya, Kashi, Kansi, and Avantika. These are mentioned as highly meritorious cities. They are the most excellent ones among the excellent cities. Made in Ayodhya, worship Mahatripura Sundari, the presiding deity, merely by her presence. There is no other great goddess equal to or similar to her. It is the Sri Devata, O king, that all others, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesha, etc., along with their women folk, always worship with clusters of coconuts, jackfruits, plantains, and plenty of excellent articles such as honey, ghee, sugar, and varieties of milk puddings. One should worship Tripurambika with all these articles and other special varieties for readily prepared things. She alone will grant along all that we desire. The king duly honored his preceptor, who told him thus: for the sake of obtaining a bosom born son, the king duly presented to his preceptor various articles of gifts that he desired, and sent him back. Thereafter, the leading king, endowed with great devotion, worshipped Lalita Parameshwari in the manner mentioned by his preceptor. Thus he performed the worship every day with delighted mind, and having appropriate contacts, he ruled over Ayodhya, which had become the abode of the deity. When the midnight hour had passed, the lamps continued to burn quietly. Due to sleep, he was a bit lethargic. Goddess Tripurambika appeared in front of him in a romantically exquisite dress and makeup. She held the noose, god, bow, and arrows in her 4 hands. She was embellished in all ornaments. Standing there, she gently spoke these words to the son of Indumati, Dasharatha, Devi's speech. O glorious and sinless Dasharatha, you are destined to have sons. There are certain sinful activities performed by you before, such as breach of faith, treachery, etc. For the purpose of subduing such sinful activities, go to the excellent city of Kanchipura. After taking your bath in the Kampa, see me, the sanctifying goddess, installed there. In the middle of the city of Kanchipura, you will see Kamakoshtha in the middle of the ethereal cavity. It is the destroyer of sins, with 7 cavities in the form of doorways. It indicates the attainment of empire. It bestows the achievement of the 3 aims in the life of men, that is, virtue, wealth, and love. I am sitting there facing the east. I am Mahesh. I am Mahashaneshwari. I am Mahashaneshwari, the great goddess of the throne. I am in the form of Mahalakshmi with only 2 arms. I hold a lotus in the hand. I am Chakreshwari, the great queen, invisible to ordinary persons, with the gross, ordinary physical eyes. To my right is seated Mahagauri, born of my eyes. She is the utmost limit of the essence of beauty. She is bedecked in all ornaments. She has been allotted residence there by me. She has 2 arms, and she holds a lotus in the hand. She is stationed there in the form of Mahalakshmi, or in the form of a Kritya, female deity presiding over magical rites. She is born of a part of me. If a person sees her from the pedestal to the crown, all his great sins perish. What then is the case of Upapataka, minor sin? Bad inclinations, bad intellect, a series of arguments with evil motives, an ugly, untidy physical form, all feelings, and atheism, all these perish or disappear. Perform great puja unto me with sugar, honey, ghee, milk, puddings, different kinds of edibles and foodstuffs, and articles having 6 tastes. I shall be delighted and shall fulfill your boon. After advising him thus, the empress of divine physical form vanished. The king got up suddenly. He thought with surprise, what is this? He wakened Queen Kaushalya, who too had witnessed some auspicious characteristics, and eagerly told her details of his nocturnal vision. On hearing it, the queen became contented. Early in the morning, the delighted king set out for Kanchipura along with his wife, ministers, and armies, and reached it. He took his bath in the river Kampa and visited the sanctifying goddess. Thereafter, the king took his bath in the Panchatirtha along with Queen Kaushalya. Accompanied by his wife, he pleased the residents He pleased the residents of that holy spot and sacred shrine by means of cows, lands, clothes, gold, and other articles of gifts. They, in their turn, praised his devotion. With great devotion, the excellent king entered the precincts of the temple. With great humility, he circumambulated 3 times. Thereafter, along with Queen Kaushalya, he came to Sannidhi, the front portion of the idol, and observed Mahatripura Sundari, whose abode was Kamakushta, who is the mother of the Trimurtis, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, and who is present there in the form of Sri Chakra. Along with his wife, the devout king bowed down and prostrated with the 8 limbs touching the ground. In his own city, there was a temple of Tripura, former, formerly built by Ikshvaku and set apart by Durvasas, along with his disciples for the purpose of worship. It had the full complement of men and women, servants, and various kinds of festivities and celebrations, with, with hoisting of flags and erection of special abodes. There he had carried out the highly rich worship himself as instructed by his preceptor. At that time, in the course of a dream at night in his own city, he saw a mast of splendor in a particular form. The excellent king saw the very same thing in the Sannidhi, sanctum sanctorum of the goddess, and meditated upon it. After meditating for a long time, the great king offered the deity many excellent garments and divine abodes. Thereafter, he eulogized her. The prayer: O goddess, appearing splendid and beautiful on account of the great ornaments handing down up to the toe of the feet. O goddess, having lotus like feet rendered beautiful by the rays and luster of gems and jewels fitted onto the anklets. O goddess, having lovely and delicate golden girdle glittering above yellow robes. O goddess, whose creeper like arms are beautified by means of armlets, bracelets, and bangles. O goddess, with the pundra variety of sugar cane shining as bow in the delicately soft and tender left hand, with the gem-set ring and flowery arrows beautifying the right hand. O goddess, having white garlands and necklaces lying gracefully over the curves of breasts. O goddess, whose body is rendered beautiful with the arms shining brilliantly due to the noose, gold, and ornaments of armlets. O goddess, who had conquered the beauty and splendor of the disk of the autumnal moon by the splendor of your face, whose cheeks have been adorned by the sparkling rays of gems in the earrings. O goddess, who hold a lotus with an excellent fibrous stalk in the left hand. O Maheshi, the great goddess, with side glances exuding a stream of kindness. O goddess, with conch like neck sparkling with necklaces set with rubies and other jewels. O goddess, having 4 locks brightly illuminated by the crescent moon stationed on the forehead. O goddess, having sparkling smiles and beautiful nose. O goddess, who had conquered the petals of the blue lotus by the brightness of the eyes. O goddess, with excellent creeper like eyebrows, beautiful face, and remarkably fine forehead. O goddess, who are like a female swan, having its abode in the lotus of the Manasa lake of leading yogins. O goddess, having a large golden crown inlaid with gems and jewels. O goddess, who are beautiful in every limb and who are worthy of being saluted by all leading gods. O goddess, who are the bestower of boons in accordance with the desires of the devotee, whose mind melts with compassion, who are proud of her imperial assets. O goddess of the mystic will, O goddess whose lotus like feet are served by Indra and other devas, O great goddess of the throne, be manifest to me. After eulogizing thus with devotion, that king came out and visited Mahagauri seated in her right side.